Hey everybody, welcome to the GMG review. Today we're taking a look at Endsong, the latest background and mission book from Corvus Belli for Infinity. Now this book is going to introduce the background and histories of a bunch of new units that'll be coming out over the next year, as well as elaborating on some of the existing more recent releases and the concept of reinforcements, which are becoming very vital to the human sphere as the combined army, the evil aliens led by an evolved intelligence who are destined to absorb and take over all living creatures in the universe in order to basically answer the question that the first AI they made got the answer to. It's basically they make deep thought from from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It figures out the answer to life, the universe, and everything, and just leaves immediately. and so they're like, but it doesn't tell them anything. So then they make another evolved intelligence, but basically that has all their flaws, and then it can't come up with the answer for the question. So it sets about trying to take over the entire universe in order to get that answer. There you go. There's the history of the war with the humans and the combined army in a nutshell. Yeah, they break through. So everything falls, and everything goes like horribly wrong for the humans. One of their huge, basically like subway routes or train routes, that was the Cerberus Gate, basically goes offline forever because it gets crushed by the combined army. The Exrah show up and just send wave after wave of their own ships into the breach. They zap Brannigan it, if you will, and crush all human resistance, and the humans are forced to fall back. Much to their chagrin. So that is where the name Endsong comes from. We are 3 minutes to midnight, because if you notice, there isn't humanity, or there isn't Earth on one of these, but this one over here, it says temporary service with Concilium. Yeah, that jump gate, it gets real close to the next system up, which is Earth. So yeah, you don't want to be having aliens on Earth. It's gonna get real bad real fast. And the Transitheria company has never shut down like this before, but the aliens have basically destroyed this. So C6 and C8, the circulars, which are the giant orbiting ships that no human faction has ever attacked, because it's just unthinkable that you would destroy these things, because basically the universe doesn't function if you can't get in between these places. Well, they're getting attacked now. The Cerberus Gate gets blown up, and it all goes terribly wrong at Dawn's, Farlaheimer, Paradiso, and Borak. That circular's gone. This is C8, and the C6 one is now under threat, of course, but being rerouted away from Concilium because this whole thing has fallen down. So what is this book? This book is a full-color background book for Infinity N4. And what it does is it moves the timeline up a titch, and also gives you all of the background information for the units that you haven't seen background information for, particularly from the new release. So from Code 1 Black Veil on, we get all of the Assassins information for the Infinity releases that have come out from then. The Assassins Baram, kind of their faction overview and what they're all about, which is great because we get the individual unit backgrounds for things like the Shakoosh, and then some color scheme stuff. Now, each of these faction overviews also comes with, and I love this part, all the unit entries, but a paint guide for one of their big things. So this is how to paint the Shakoosh light armored unit. I really appreciate they put a paint guide in here. Infinity is known for its elaborate, beautiful paint jobs, and seeing a step-by-step that includes both airbrushing and physical, like brush painting, I thought was really cool. I was not expecting that to be in here, and I thought that was a really nice, subtle add-on to these books to add some value. So it has paint guides for a lot of these bigger new units. And the Shakoosh is a gorgeous miniature, so I'm glad it's in there. Now the Observance also gets an update, because obviously the Observance have just gotten a bunch of new miniatures. They get all of their background of, well, what are these psychotropically drugged nuns doing on a space station full of weirdos and hippies? Well, they're trying to save everybody. We get color schemes for them, and then all of their troop profiles. And again, we get a paint guide, and this time it's for the Penitent. So Penitent is the big size 5 heavy infantry model that comes in the starter set with the rest of the Observance, like sort of starter. And yeah, you get a step-by-step including airbrushing and paint work for this as well. So 2 Siocast models getting some paint guides, which I thought was pretty cool. Even showing like the later stuff, like after we finished this gold, we went and airbrushed the glow in, and then went and tightened it up afterwards, which I thought was cool.
Then Aleph, as they were the other half of Red Veil, not Red Veil, Black Veil. Red Veil was a totally different starter set, which I'm losing track of. They get Steel Flanks overview, because it's been a while, because they were all the new key features that were in here. And then the Troopers like the new Agamemnon, which is their Stingray series size 6 tag, the Marut. Basically, anything that got a new model last little while, you're going to get a troop profile for it, which I thought was really cool. Which means I think we're waiting on an Atalanta miniature, a new one, which I think would be exciting, because there's a concept in there for her. And of course, we know the new Ajax is coming. New Phoenix, who just got a new miniature. Scylla, I think is awesome, who will hopefully get a new miniature at some point. Machaon, looking like Hector's not getting a new mini, though, because he's relatively recent, and also his mini goes across a couple of factions. And then Pensathaleia, although they show her bootleg miniature, which I think is interesting. And then a paint guide on Machaon, who is from the upgrade box. So step-by-step on painting Machaon, which I thought was cool. Including the faces. I do like seeing how they get that rich depth of contrast on the faces. And they start with this like incredibly red base tone and then work it up so that that tone is still underneath in like all the recesses and on the lips. I thought that was really cool. His weapons, all his glowy stuff. And look at the fearless macro photography in here. It really takes guts to take pictures of miniatures up this close and show them off. We get the Agamemnon, same thing. Lots of airbrushing, followed by tightening up all the details. Even masking. So that was nice. Nice to show that off. And then reinforcements. So now this first 129 pages is dedicated to upgrading the first, like, the stage basically of where are we at as the human sphere. And what are the key features of these 3 new factions that have kind of gotten a glow up in the last little while. So they're almost mini faction books for like the up-to-date stuff for those. Now we're into the reinforcement idea. So the idea here is it's full red alert, right? The circulars are down, C8, A and B, and C6B are all down and destroyed, which means these huge mass conveyors that basically run everything around the human sphere are gone, and that's going to have massive economic and like human cost to that. And then C7A is broken down. The reinforcements are being called in. So everyone's mobilizing their mobile troops, and that means that certain armies, such as Neoterra, so this is Code Capital, and if you haven't, so it's worth noting, there's no rules in this book. So the rules for reinforcements are going to be an annex, which typically happens for Infinity stuff, so that it doesn't live in a book like this. So you're never looking at something out of date. So if you're wondering where the rules for reinforcements are, because they're a new game mode for Infinity that's coming out, it's getting a lot of talk right now, they're not going to be in this book. And they're specifically not going to be in this book because Corvus Belli likes to keep stuff like that online when it's addendum to the core rules so that they can modify it if they have to, and you're never playing with something that's out of date. So what's in here for the reinforcements is the background information on all the new units and the units that are receiving a glow up, but not any hard and fast printed rules. They're very specific about that. And I still find that to be a double-edged sword. For one, I made sure that I have like a zip drive full of all of these downloads because at some point, and this isn't me saying like the future's grim, but at some point, either edition-wise, this stuff's gonna go away. Digital rules will leave and be gone. Printed books are forever. I will print and bind all of those things eventually so that I have them, because you will lose that stuff eventually at some point. Your miniature collection might become unplayable to that game if you don't have access to those digital assets. But on the flip side, I'm old, and that's not a fear that most people who are getting into gaming or who are currently kind of in their heyday of gaming are going to worry about. So I realize that's a me issue, not necessarily a CB issue. And that's CB being very in tune with like what the modern consumer wants. They want their rules to be always up to date. They want them to be currently available, just like their phones are, and accessible on their phones. So yeah, you're not going to find the rules for reinforcements in here. The short story long of it is it's a game mode like limited insertion in ITS. If you know what Infinity is, then those words make sense to you. If they don't, then don't worry about it. Basically, it's a toggle on, toggle off option to play with a core list and a sidebar. And the reinforcements are a sidebar. It either arrives on turn 2 if you're getting hammered and you've lost a bunch of troops, or on turn 3. If not, it's just like your reinforcement phase. And it's a 250 point main body of your list and then a 100 point sidebar that shows up later on. They place a drop pod token. They all arrive within range of that drop pod. And that's it. So these are basically like when it's all going horribly wrong, you can call for reinforcements. And this is an excuse to refresh a lot of these armies that are designed to be sort of super mobile.
NCA gets Code Capital. It means that an old classic troop type like the Bolts can get a glow up. There's a new Blade Ops Commando Regiment. Blockers is a new one. A new Squallow. Squallow is the big heavy Lancer tag, the classic Pano tag. It's getting a light version, like a recon version in the Mark II. So a small size 6 version. Agnes Fiera is a current miniatures, getting a bit of background. And that's it. So those are what's going to show up. There's also like remotes and things in there, but these are like the main core units that are going to be in that reinforcement list. All of this stuff is available as like spoilers right now, I think, on Tabletop if you want to go check it out. Or go to the Tactical Awareness Discord. It's all pinned there by Owen. He's curated all of it. If you want to see it all just like screen grabbed and put up in lights, you can see it there. Yuching has got the Diebeck Force, and they've got their Dokaibi Cyber Team. Anyway, robots were really cool. The Jujaks, the High Ties, the Orangs, the Suyong Naval Operations Group, Salsa Warriors, Sora Kwan, who's one of the character models, all getting their background information in here. And then Chung-Hee Zhang, who's the chief engineer, and Bishi, who is this year's ITS miniature, also put in here with her cool super robot legs. Ariadne gets the Équipe Argent, the Silver Team, which is the Merovingians, the French, who are coming back as a faction. They have a new unit type, the Apaches. Then they have the Loups-Garous, who are basically like an older unit type, getting hopefully new sculpts. The Bracards, the Moblats, and the Chasseurs, who will all get... actually, the Chasseur has a current miniature. It's one of the only Merovingian miniatures that's made in the last 5 years. And then Jacques Brown, the Sioux officer of the Metros special character. Getting some background information. The Melek Reaction Force, which is the Kapukalki, who are the original oldest sectorial in Haqqislam. They're getting a glow up with some new units, and of course their reinforcements come from that faction. They get Corson, Corsairs of the Gate, the Burkut Aerospace Engineer Regiment, Havs and Odalisks, who are a classic unit, are getting kind of a small bit of changes, and they will be the sort of like... These guys, their background is they are the guardians of the Silk Road, which is like the bioengineering trade routes of the human sphere. They are a naval force that protects the Haqqislam ships that are traveling around. So like the Sekbans are their like special naval unit. The Azraels, their heavy support guys, and the Al-Hawaz, their like infiltrator, hacker, recon guy. These are all classic units, but those two new units, the Burkuts and the Corsons, will be getting new sculpts in the next year or so. But a cool way to it seems like that's what they've done is they've picked mostly units that are older sectorials and all had like a space theme to give them some new units and like a glow up. The Nomads get the Vipera Pursuit Force, and this is the Black Labs people. So the Black Labs are basically where all the freaky kind of anime stuff happens in the Nomad starships. Well, like home ships, they're huge, like massive, like mass conveyors, or space stations. Yeah, the Rounders Casino Security. The Black Labs are not necessarily the most above board and legit people, but this is who they call for reinforcements. They call the crime folks. The Kulak Retribution Unit, the Lizard, which is like an original cheap tag. Red Sky Crew Mars Spiders, which are geological like Martian sort of like people. Like they're basically like, imagine if like Mulder from the X-Files got loose on a Nomad space station. This is who he'd turn into. He'd be a little bit of a conspiracy theorist. Imagine Charlie Day in front of the board with all the red strings. That's who the Mars Spiders are. And then Jelena Kovac is also the special character that gets attached to this, which I think is kind of neat because they've given her like an additional like bit of work to do. So some neat new units. Now the Combined Army, we've got another classic bringback, which is the Exrah. Now the Exrah are the bug people. They're literal insects. Their special rule makes them kind of dangerous to use because they don't have an unconscious state. Basically, they're hard on the outside, soft on the inside. So just like if you squish a bug, if you break through their armor and they take a wound, they just go straight to dead. Like their guts spill out and they just die. But because they're insects and they're raised in like droves and droves, they're kind of expendable, and that's how they overwhelm the Cerberus Gate, as they just send wave of Exrah in to basically break the hold. I get base operators, void operators, and vector operators, all classic unit types being brought back with a glow up. You can see the stats on the Discord if you want. The Exrah WCD Executive Officer, which is like their leader, and then the Armored, the Cascudas, the Armored Jump Operators, which is their tag. The Nexus operatives are also in here, which are like the liaisons from the Umbra, which are the weird space wizards that are part of it as well. So neat to see them come back. We don't really know yet how it's going to get folded into the
the main combined army, but it's cool that they've been sort of returned into the legit, you know, like I have an old vector operator I could just use right now, but returned to the fold basically for the game. Now, O12 actually contains a bunch of units that have been released already that are getting like their background bits. So like, for instance, the Gladius teams have the road bots, the Sarco, and the Secu droids backgrounds in here. And these Gladius teams are basically like, imagine like a special task force of police officers, naval police that are getting sent to these things. Starmada in particular, the naval security. So they played a huge part in the defense of the gate. But some new troops too. Nightshades and the Vidocs, as well as the Jackboots. Who are like I guess like the sort of like, I don't want to say like the bad cops, but they're a little brutal. There's not a little less, more punishment, less crime, less like, was it more order and less law, I guess. You're going to take a Dick Wolf theme of it. And the Ment Agents, who are more like, imagine the Ment Agents as like Deckard in Blade Runner, investigative cops. For Aleph, we have Program Ankh, which is basically the response to Aleph, because like the Steel Flanks are on the front line when the Cerberus Gate falls, and they take the brunt of like damage. The Program Ankh is basically like them trying to rally more AI aspects, because Aleph is the human shackled AI that helps run the human sphere and send them into fighting. I think it's a new tac box. This one's my favorite, the Rickshaw tac bot. It is a punch bot. It's incredible. It's got big punchy fists, and the day one, the day one is the punch one, the martial arts tac bot, and it gets a huge background bit. The rickshaws are just kind of like glowed up, slightly fightier Daikinis. The Satra, which are kind of a whatchamacallit, infiltration unit, and the Artalis as well. And then Superman. Literal Superman. Maximus, the greatest of the Aristea like people. Apparently he was the greatest Aristea player of all time. He joins Aleph, but he isn't politically affiliated to anybody. So he's kind of a wild card, which is interesting. And he joins the support subsection in particular because all he wants to do is save all the humans he can. So while he's ostensibly affiliated with Aleph, he is more of a like rogue agent because he only answers to his own morality. But because he's like so powerful and so loved by all the factions, including like Yu Ching, Hakaslam, like the political affiliation doesn't matter. He's not really politically aligned. He's just equipped and supported by Aleph. He has been given basically a manned tag suit of armor, but doesn't wear a helmet, and goes in his like super Aristea form to go lead the fight. His stats have been spoiled. He's bonkers. He's like a 70-point character tag. I think the first character tag in the game, which is a tactical assault gear. Yeah, he's rad. And they've already shown stats for him either inside or outside the reinforcements, which means he should be able to be available to vanilla Aleph as well. And if you want to see today, I've got the miniature to show you. It's in Siocast. And then it's the NA2 contracted backup. This is giving some new life to some older sculpts. So Independent Operator Samsa is like a character model, but then we've also got things like Brawlers, the Monstruckers, the War Driver, and the CSUs who are available to this as well. It gives N2A a reinforcement option. And the Toa get their own too, the Darius Carr, which uses all old Toa scopes, nothing new here. So the Raziel boarding team gets their background sort of like rewritten. The Coastal Assault Engineers, Nima Sitar, who's the character Ectros Regiment. They get some of their background basically explained in this section as well. And that's it. So that's the whole first 184 pages of this are bringing you up to speed and giving you unit profiles for all these new models. And then we have the Endsong mission set. So basically it's playing through a set of narrative missions. You can play at any point size from 150 to 400. And they are, the fall basically of the gate up to Concilium Prime. So you have occupation of the aliens. It starts with the sort of like the beginning of the end, which is search and decontaminate. So the civilians are trapped inside the quantum anomaly that comes when they come through the gate. Then you've got remote signaling to try and get the quantum anomaly zones from not spreading all over Concilium Prima. They're trying to like stop the aliens from setting up these quantum attenuation walls from the hegemony. And then finally occupation, because the aliens are here and they're here to stay. So three cool, fun missions, narrative missions to play through, and we'll probably play through these over the course of like the summer, the remainder of the summer, to try them out and show off the story modes from this as well, because story mode missions are fun. And that's it. That's Endsong. So like I said, no rules. It's not a rule book. It's a background book. It does a great job of kind of contemporizing the events of the last couple ITS seasons. So if you've been following the story that comes through in the yearly tournament missions and mission pack for Infinity, this kind of culminates in this fall of the Cerberus Gate, which is the current ITS. So we know the aliens win. So spoiler alert, they're getting through, which means that the occupation of the aliens is probably going to be something to do with the theme of the next one and the return of the Exrah. And us fighting back, we're now in occupied territory. A big chunk of the human sphere has kind of been conquered and taken over by the aliens. Yeah, so that's where the story gets pushed to, and you get all your unit profiles for all the new stuff that's come out next, like the last little while. So I like these simply because Infinity has a fairly well thought out, like I want to say like not quite the Expanse-ish, but maybe like a blend of the Expanse and Blade Runner and let's say Altered Carbon, sort of a world. And they give us peeks into it like this, and the units are interesting, and it kind of gives you a reason to root for all of these individual models on the table when you know what they're about. I did not realize Maximus was basically Superman and lived to like his own code and wasn't just like an Optimate like aspect of the EI. I like that they're very much lampooning the Gladiator Maximus, right? Where he follows like along in the beginning with his Emperor, and then his Emperor gets killed and they kill his family, and so he just becomes this person like only bound by their own morality. Like I'm into that. I'm into the idea that that's where he is. He's a former gladiator that becomes like a leader. So we'll see where that story goes. And obviously the miniatures are still great. I love that there's painting guides in here. And if you're into more background for Infinity, then you got this great new background book that'll get you up to speed. So thanks for watching. We'll see you for more GMG reviews. Till then, I'm Ash. Have a great day. Hey there, I hope you enjoyed that video. There are tons of other games already recorded for you to watch. Click over to my channel page if you haven't already, and have a look through the dozens of playlists full of videos. I guarantee you'll discover a game you haven't seen played before. I put out new videos 7 days a week, and every day is themed to a different genre as I continue to explore the wider world of gaming. Of course, none of that's possible without you, the viewer, so click a like and subscribe if you'd like to stay on top of what's happening here daily. My two kids and I are massively grateful to be able to have the flexibility of this job so I can always maximize my time with them. If you want to support me continuing to put out this content, it's only possible because of my amazing backers on Patreon who support the studio, equipment, and model cost, as well as being how I make the bulk of my living. You can also help out by buying a t-shirt through Spreadshirt, a measuring gauge or widget from Death Ray Designs, or buying one of my games and supplements like Last Days, Gamma Wolves, and Blaster. As a way of showing my appreciation, patrons get early access to new games and supplements that I write throughout the course of the year. Huge thanks for watching, it really does help out, and happy gaming.